Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio, so today we need to have a look at some new decks that have gone and been revealed, and I am pretty gosh darned excited about these new decks that have gone and been revealed. They look pretty cool. Although I do have some questions, and they are a little bit confusing, so let's start off. Well, we got two new Deluxe Battle decks. Let's start off with the Zapdos EX deck, which is really very weird to me, because it's called the Zapdos EX deck, right? But it's clearly got Miraidon on the image, and we all know that Miraidon is like a real deck, and that Zapdos is a tech in Miraidon decks, so why is it the Zapdos deck? Bit weird to me. For what it's worth, it does actually come with two Zapdos EX and one Miraidon EX, so that's essentially why. But Miraidon's a real deck, and Zapdos is a tech within that deck. It seems weird to make it a Zapdos deck, not a Miraidon deck. Now, before we go any further, I do of course need to mention we have already had a Miraidon League Battle deck. That's a thing. And we also need to mention that when it comes to Miraidon League Battle decks, this is like a really serious competitive product. It comes with two Miraidon, two Regieleki V, and two Regieleki V Max. And we know at this stage that the Regieleki V Max build is not the best build of this deck. We've had a lot of tournaments. We've had Miraidon doing very well. We have a bevy of information that tells us this is not the best way to build Miraidon. However, the deck list for the Miraidon EX League Battle deck is a very, very good deck list, and you will have to kind of switch out the Regieleki and buy a few singles and all of that, but you can turn this into a competitive tournament winning level deck pretty quickly, and that's kind of the point of it. So I suppose a Miraidon deck here wouldn't make much sense. We've already had a League Battle deck, which is frankly better if you want to play competitively. It's just weird to me to have Miraidon on this deck and it be a Zapdos deck. That is very, very weird to me. But I'll tell you what, this is a pretty good deck with a bunch of pretty good cards. Now, it's not a League Battle deck. It is not designed to be a League Battle deck. You'll notice on the front it is a level 2 product, whereas the Miraidon League Battle deck is a level 3 product. What that basically means is the Miraidon League Battle deck is supposed to be full-on tournament level competitive. This is a level 2 deck. It is supposed to be, well, it's between the League Battle decks and the EX Battle decks. EX Battle decks are full-on just introductory level products, although I've told you many times before that these are really good. If you just want to learn to play the Pokemon TCG cheaply and have a bunch of decks to play, buying a bunch of EX Battle decks is genuinely, seriously a really good way to do it. This is somewhere in between. Not full-on starter level, which is your EX Battle decks. Not full-on tournament competitive level, that's your League Battle decks. These are somewhere in between. They occupy that middle ground. And if we look at some of the cards in this deck, you can kind of see it. Sure, you've got yourself a 4-3-2 Pawmot line. And let's be honest with you, I don't think this is an unfair statement. Pawmot is not the best deck out there. Pawmot is not terribly competitive, alright? I've said that. But you do get yourself a couple of Zapdos EX that are very, very good cards. You get yourself a Miraidon EX, which is a very, very good card. But you get stuff like Free Electric Generator. Now, if we want to nitpick, and I kind of want to nitpick here, why not just give us a playset? Why not just up it to 4 and give us a playset? Why would you give us 3 when a playset is 4? An Electric Generator is a card that is always played as a playset. Just give us a playset, alright? It's a little bit annoying to me, frankly. Why not just give us 4? But it's a card that lets you accelerate energy in Lightning decks, and it's a staple in Lightning decks. Seeing that in there is really good. Similarly, Earthen Vessel, a card that lets you discard a card from your hand and search for basic energy. That is a really good card that sees a bunch of play and helps you get your basic energy out. That is a good staple card that we see in a whole bunch of decks. There's a playset of Nest Ball in here, which, I mean, it's a staple now, but especially after rotation when we lose some Pokemon search options, this is going to become an even bigger, better staple than it is now. We've got 3 copies of Ultra Ball coming in here, which again is another card which is just standard Pokemon search, which sees a huge amount of play, and we can expect to be seeing in most decks moving forward. There are a bunch of cards in here which are absolute full-on staples. It's not like we generally tend to see in the EX battle decks, which are filled with cards that frankly are not going to see any competitive play. There are a lot of very good cards in here. We got Hawlucha in here, which admittedly doesn't really see play in Miraidon decks, but actually Hawlucha's ability drops 1 damage counter on each of 2 bench Pokemon, and then Zapdos has a really rather nice attack. Incidentally, it is the reason why it's teched into these Miraidon decks, that does 120 to the active and 90 to a bench Pokemon with any damage counters on it. So you can see the whole point of this is they've put Hawlucha in there so you can drop damage, so you can then activate Zapdos' attack doing the extra damage. It's really nice. But then they go and give you stuff like Free Youngster. Well, yeah, that's not good. Like, Youngster doesn't see any play. Youngster's not a particularly good card. It's a shuffle draw 5, and I am fully aware that in the past, when this card was called Shauna, it saw a bunch of play, was a good card. I've entered many a tournament with this card, although it was called Shauna at the time. But not for a while. Right now, this is not a good card that sees a bunch of play. And I've already told you that the Pawmot is not a particularly good and competitive card. And that's kind of the point here. There's a bunch of I haven't even mentioned all of them. There are some other good cards in here. Some other trainer cards. Like, for instance, there's a full playset Bravery Charm, which is a really good card that sees a bunch of play. Gives extra HP to basic Pokemon. There are a bunch of good cards in this deck. And then there are a bunch of cards in here which are just not good. And I suppose that kind of makes sense as a level 2 product. But also it's like you got so close. You put a bunch of really good cards in here. Could we not have gone a little bit further? And then the counter argument is they did. It's called the League Battle Deck. But there's just something about this where it's like there's some good cards in here. Could you not have gone further? Now, I know I spent the majority of the video talking about the Zapdos deck and not getting onto the Ninetales deck. There is a reason. The Zapdos deck is definitely better. Because, I mean, look, Ninetales exists as a fun little tech that has seen a bit of play here and there. It's not something around which you will build a deck. Like, Ninetales, I mean, it's got 2 energy, 80 damage. If you can match hands with your opponent, it does 220. Which for 2 energy on a stage 1 is fine. But it's not good. It's a decent tech in fire decks. But that's where it ends. That's the most we see here. We don't see any more. As a side note, remember this is a Pokemon 151 set card, just like the Zapdos, so I kind of love the way that they have gone, hey, 151's a new set that people are liking, let's make a couple of decks based around Pokemon from there. That's actually really cool. But then the rest of the deck is just a bit like, eh. Like, the other card that really gets play here is Rapidash. Like, that's the other big part of this deck. And it is the Rapidash from Silver Tempest, the one that lets you discard a fire energy from your hand, and then your fire Pokemon do 30 more to your opponent's active this turn. So you can see the kind of point here. The deck they're trying to make us build is go nuts with Rapidash getting extra damage, and then smash with Ninetales. Like that's the deck they're going for here, and I get it. But then by the same token, I just don't think it's particularly good. And I don't think it's gonna win that much. I certainly don't like it as much as I like the Miraidon deck. and the Miraidon deck is fine. While we're here, there is actually only one other like proper Pokemon that isn't a pre-evolution in the deck. It is Paldean Tauros, obviously the fire one, and that's the one. I mean, it's got Raging Horns, 20 plus 10 free damage counter on it, and it's got amazing Akira Igawa artwork, but most of the time this thing is just going to get one-hit KO'd anyway. So I'm not sure how often this is actually going to end up kind of being useful. Certainly Pokemon-wise, I do think it's a landslide for the Zapdos deck. But this one, I mean, it could be fun to have a play with, but this is, hey, let's buy 2 of these and play them against each other. That is the most you're getting out of the Ninetales one. As a side note, you get 3 Ninetales because, of course, you get 2 Zapdos, 1 Miraidon in the other deck, so you have to get 3 here. And look, they've done a decent job here with some of this. They've gone and given us Judge. Obviously, you need to try and match hand sizes to make Ninetales work, so having a Judge in there is pretty cool, because that will make sure you match hand sizes. But for instance, they haven't given us in this deck Magma Basin. And Magma Basin accelerates fire energy and puts damage counters on, which will, of course, beef up the attack of Paldean Tauros. And I know it's from Brilliant Stars, which is, well, essentially this is going to be the older set that's still legal when the rotation hits. So it is an older set at this point that gave us Magma Basin, but like, if I was playing this deck, there's no way I wouldn't be putting Magma Basin in. Like, Magma Basin seems like an absolute slam dunk. So, these decks as a whole, it's like, yeah, they've given us Judge. You definitely need Judge to make Ninetales work. But they haven't given us Magma Basin, presumably because it's a little bit older. But that would have made a big difference to this deck actually, you know, working. So look, these decks are fine. They've got some decent cards and some decent staples in. I think the Zapdos deck is a fair bit better than the Ninetales deck. You get 3 EXs per deck, and they're going to be fun to play with. They are going to be fun to play with, but I've not. But I think if you played these against each other, my money would be on the Miraidon deck. Pretty strongly on the Miraidon deck. And I do think it has the better deck list in terms of cards you're going to want to take and put in other decks. So, yeah. These are releasing on the 27th of March. They are reselling for $20. And if you want some decks to play with, these are going to be cool. If you want to take a step up from the EX battle decks, these are going to be pretty cool. If you're looking seriously to play competitively, ignore these and just pick up the Miraidon League battle deck. There we go. That's what you need to know. Now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about these. Are you going to be picking them up? Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel like the lovely Unknown One, who's been a supporter of ours for a little while now and is a very lovely person. So shout-out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.